Hello and welcome to All Things Nonlinear Dynamical, talks about the brain and human connection. This show tackles the big questions: overcoming challenges, mental well-being, the power of music and literature, and even cutting-edge brain training. Because as they say, All Things Nonlinear Dynamical talks about the brain and human connection. So join me as I run a demo of a NeurOptimal session. We'll get that started in just a minute. I'm going to drop down here, get a few things out of the way for us. And I want to talk a little bit about the first important point, that NeurOptimal is training and not treatment. If you have a medical or mental health issue, please consult with a licensed healthcare professional and explain your desire to train with NeurOptimal, and consider offering them a guide that I'm going to be providing you to explore the possibilities that training can offer, and let them advise you on your medical and mental health issues. So what I'm going to be showing you right now is this is an NeurOptimal vault. We have a client header and a session header in the default configuration. I'm not going to go into the additional columns that are available. Trainer and location, we'll do that at another time. And I'm going to add myself a client here, and I'm tapping and holding or right clicking on the client header, and I'm tapping and clicking on add client, and we're going to call this client demo session. I don't really go in and use the other tabs here. For my purposes, it's not necessary. Just make a little tweak here because I've already used demo session. And so here is the demo session client, and I've got clients confidential on. I'll toggle it off so you can see that. What you see is a superscript 0 here, which means there's no session that have been run under this client. Once we start running sessions, you'll see them, the session records start to line up underneath it. I'm going to be running a demo session. The regular session is 33 minutes. There's an extended session of 44 minutes. The demo is 15 minutes. And you can also run a custom session of 15 to 44 minutes, but we're going to be doing a demo session here. And there are a couple of ways you can start a session. You do not use the NO Media Player to do that. You got to be here in the record, and you can tap and hold and right click or start a session, but you can also double click on it or double tap. So I'm going to double tap on it, and you'll see that it's preparing my session and loading session media. And what you're seeing right now is the matrix mirror. The matrix mirror is only a visual display that gives a representation of a very complex process behind the scenes. This is a two-dimensional display. EEG is actually a four-dimensional phasor. So what's really going on behind the scenes is a four-dimensional process here that's being represented in 2D. You can hear the music. And the way NeurOptimal works is that it measures the summation of the cortical activity from 0.01 hertz all the way up to 64 hertz. And it's whole brain electrical activity that it's measuring. And you'll see these green boxes here. They're actually what's called the time dash frequency envelopes, or targets. There's 10 on the left hemisphere and 10 on the right hemisphere. And you also see the spectra lines, colored lines, that are giving an indication of electrical activity. But keep in mind that The Z amp, the amplifier that I'm using, measures electrical activity at 256 times per second. So what's actually going on is way faster than we can actually see. And you also hear the music, and then you hear these little interruptions or pauses, much like a scratch on a vinyl record. And that's the feedback. It's a takeaway of information. So it's negative feedback, and combining the music along with the interruptions that offers the brain a chance to notice what's going on during a session and make a decision on whether to respond to that or not. It just provides the orienting response to the brain about what it's doing. Kind of a good analogy is, the speed bumps on a highway. If you're traveling along and, let's say you're dozing off, the speed bumps are a great indicator of, hey, I need to pay attention to what I'm doing. And if I'm wanting to take an exit, I'll notice the speed bumps. Well, in that case, I want to take the exit. So the speed bumps are irrelevant at that time. And this is much the same in the process with NeurOptimal, taking in information, making its own decisions about that relevant information, or whether to make a course correction or not. The brain is a magnificent nonlinear dynamical system, the most elegant version of that in the known universe, if you will, at least in my humble opinion. And in every nonlinear dynamical system, when there is going to be a change in phase state, what precedes that change is flutter, or emergent variability for a more technical term. And that flutter offers an opportunity via NeurOptimal, when a target may be triggered and a pause may be generated, offers an opportunity for the brain to notice what it's doing prior to making that change state. So it can make a decision whether it wants to go off the freeway or, hey, it's time to wake up. And the brain will always make decisions based upon difference in information and noticing that in a way that minimizes discomfort to it, as opposed to, conscious discomfort. That's the brain is concerned about survival, not necessarily conscious thrival. You're listening to the music, and this gorgeous music is a compilation of 6 tracks. All of the music composed for NeurOptimal is composed by Grammy Award-winning producer, songwriter Jeff Bova. And there are 4 compilations. The default compilation, which is what you're listening to in NeurOptimal version 3, or also known as NO3, is music for Zengar, or music for NeurOptimal number 4. There are 3 other compilations that can be purchased in the store. They're all gorgeous. I'm going to shut up for a little bit and let you just listen in on the session. Listen for the music and the interruptions. One thing I want to make very clear to everyone is you're listening in on a brain training session, and the information being provided to it is in relation to my brain, not your brain. And our brains are magnificent in being able to understand information coming in from the internal and external environment constantly, but also in noticing what's relevant to it. So if you hear the pauses in the music, your brain's saying, that's not my brain activity. So it ignores that. So no worries if you think I'm a bit weird. It's not going to come off on you. You're not going to get my brain cooties, okay? Not going to get my brain cooties at all. Got a little over 6 minutes left in the session. And again, this is a demo session of 15 minutes. Regular session is 33 minutes. That's the sweet spot as far as training with NeurOptimal. Data over the years, and we're talking about, close to 25 plus years here. Various iterations of NeurOptimal. The data shows that 33 minutes is just right. More in time in session is not necessarily better. The data doesn't support that. I just love this music. And I know music is subjective. Some people just absolutely adore it, and others, maybe not as much. To each his own, I say. You can use your own music in NeurOptimal, as long as it's not anything that pushes the brain, like brainwave entrainment music, binaural beats, monaural beats, isochronic tone, because that's contrary to what NeurOptimal's trying to do in terms of just letting the brain notice the information and make its own decision. NeurOptimal's not trying to push the brain in any way, shape, or form. Just be. When you're tired, sleep. When you're hungry, eat. So, keep in mind that I'm running a session while also running a live podcast. So there's a lot of system resources that are being utilized in that. And it's an important point to understand that the length of a pause or an interrupt is irrelevant. It is the initiation of the pause or interrupt that provides the orienting response to the brain. So some of the longer pauses that you're hearing here are based upon the fact that I'm taxing the system, but it's not impacting training in any way, shape, or form. You're getting down to the last minute of training. What happens when the session ends is you'll see a dialog box pop up indicating that the session's ending, it's stopping the Z-amp, please wait for that process to complete. You'll notice the music fading out. And the session's over, and you can see the vault reappearing and then shutting down the Z-amp dialog box. And there's my session. So now that superscript that you saw earlier is gone. There's one session. You could actually see how many sessions are for an individual by getting the session counts. You just witnessed the very first one for this magnificent client. You can also check and see what by opening the session information record. I could have entered session notes during the session on the NO Media Player. There will be a little note icon that you could click on. I can enter after session notes. Yeah, the session was great. Tony the Tiger, great. Add a note. And what you can see is here, if you have a busy practice and you want to enter trainers, keep track of sessions that way. I don't use that particular feature. If I mistakenly ran this on the wrong client, I could simply click the appropriate client and click OK, and the session would move from the initial client to the one who needed to have that session record. You could add locations if you have multiple locations. This is a location of the physical location of the train file. Again, I ran a demo session of 15 minutes and I used the default music, Zen Music demo version. This is the NeurOptimal version. I've got the current version of NeurOptimal. And in the USA and Canada, the electrical mains current is 60 hertz. So my notch filter is appropriately set. Other areas are 50 hertz. You need to make sure that you set the notch filter for that. And that's about all I got to show you here right now. We could go in more depth if anybody likes, but I'll wait for you to ask for that. So stop the screen sharing and bring up window. And I don't see any questions in the chat. So ta-ta for now. A little under 22 minutes. Cheers and be well.